Hello, my
Hey,
friend.
hello.
You look awfully nice.
Thank you. I put my face on.
I know you told me you're putting your face on, and I think it worked very well.
Oh yeah, this is a camera. Might as well put on a face.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we're asking the question, what is success? And we're here to serve everyone. There are different versions of happiness for however many people there are on the planet these days, right?
Mhm.
So we're going to have hopefully a practical discussion and not too philosophical, but really making it user friendly because what we're talking about is conscious living and how we can live on purpose with intention, with more presence. So that would be the spirit that we're approaching success with, but let's open it up. So, you before I don't think that we can talk about success without talking about happiness, right?
Correct. They are, what would you call it? Entangled or whatever, but they are definitely related.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, the pursuit of happiness, I mean, isn't that what we're all looking for? If there's any meaning to life, I mean, obviously the meaning that life has is whatever meaning you put into it. I mean, we have human minds. We're the only, see, look, I'm already getting philosophical, but we're the only beings, human beings are the only primates, the only things in this universe, as far as the telescope can see, that can make meaning out of things. We're meaning making machines. It's an absolutely beautiful thing that we can do that. And we're creative beings, so we're able to put whatever meaning that we say into life. So isn't that a gorgeous thing that we can do? Yet we suffer, and
I was just gonna
life,
say that it could be your worst enemy.
yeah, yeah. It's like we human beings that can actually project ourselves into a future and ruminate on a past because we have these prefrontal cortex that are always making meaning out of things. This can be our biggest gift, you could say, and perhaps our biggest faux pas. So here we are at this stage in evolution, trying to make some sense out of why we're here, what our purpose is, and therefore what success is. And it's all not even just connected to happiness, but meaning, right?
Hmm.
That I didn't mean, I had no idea what we were going to start off talking about, but that's kind of how I would start: happiness, meaning, purpose, which would bring us to success. So with that being said, where would you like to start, my
Well,
friend?
I think you mentioned it, which was it's all a process of evolution, right? So when I was younger, I was my definition of success was to climb up the corporate ladder, which I was doing fairly quickly. And, bought myself the BMW and all those things too. I had I was defining success as where I was career wise and what I had that to show off for it. And then throughout the years, through my evolution, I've been humbled, and success is much different for me now. So it really depends on where the person is at through their evolution process, and how they define happiness, or I'm sorry, success,
Yeah,
because if they have success, if they feel happy at that time.
yeah.
I think it comes to the question is it a true happiness or is it a false happiness? And that's really hard to discern when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and here we are at midlife, you and me, and there are, there's, what am I going to say? Midlife crisis, and so midlife, everybody has some sort of form of that. I mean, almost all of us do. We have a time in our life, and maybe it's not midlife, but it's a time when we say, all right, well, I'm not going to live forever. I think when we're in our 20s, in our teens, we kind of think we are going to live forever
Yeah.
a lot of the time. And then we realize, wow, this life is finite. What's it for? Why am I here? What really matters? What really matters? So here you and I are at midlife asking this question. And I think, we all have to go through a process. Fame, fortune, those are two things that are really big on people's lists when they're younger a lot of the time. Not always, but there are certain ways that we are positioned, that we are, what's the word I'm looking for? That we have a perspective in our life, and it's we're looking in a certain through certain glasses when we're younger, and as we get older we start to have maybe different priorities. And then on our deathbed, like, what, I mean, that's the ultimate question: what's going to really matter? What is going to really matter? So we're asking, what's success? So we've I could define happiness as well-being,
Mhm.
as some sort of sense of well-being. If I was going to just simplify it, how would you define happiness?
Um, to me, happiness, I think it's the same thing as well-being. It's just being comfortable in your own skin and being comfortable and happy when you are alone, knowing that you're not lonely.
That is a beautiful thing. So you have reached a point in your life where you've realized that it's not just about what you get, which is what you has started off talking about, that was your priority. You probably, what we find out is certain things don't work, and so what really matters is how you feel when you're alone.
Hmm. And you know what? And the things that we can get. So what I've learned, and I think, both you and I have both had to rebuild, right? And that was scary, leaving everything that we had to start all over again in our different ways. But starting over again, finding the joy and starting again under your own rules, I
Hmm.
think I think it's successful. It's success for me. The material things, the things that we want, I want to, and I've been learning this throughout the process, is when you come from a place of want, when you want something, that's actually a lack of something versus desiring. So I'm going to venture out to say that you feel like you have enough. Like you are enough, you have enough. Everything else that you get is that desire, and it's an extra bonus in your life.
That's beautiful. So getting ultimate success, are we talking about success or happiness at this point?
Well,
Are you're saying you're saying that success for you, ultimate success, is getting to a place where you want for nothing and you're okay being
yeah,
alone? And
yeah.
that's beautiful. That would be the inner path to happiness, because and success. So that really brings me to what I love, who I love to quote is Eckhart Tolle. Talks about, we have an inner purpose and an outer purpose. I don't know if you've heard him talk about that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's easy. He says things so simply, that an outer purpose is to express yourself and to find, and we can talk about that. Talk about what our outer purpose is. Our outer purpose is how we use this life. And our inner purpose is the degree to which we find happiness within. The spiritual traditions tell us that happiness is to be found within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have to be worked for. It's your birthright, and it's something that's beneath your thoughts and your emotions. It's there. It's the awareness that you are. You can call that awareness spirit. It's that groundedness that we find when we simply take a deep breath, when we're in the present moment, when we're connecting to another human being, when we're seeing the beauty that's around us. It can only be found in this present moment. The beautiful thing is when we find that, we can express, in my experience, and I'm a work in progress as we all are, but so far at this midlife point, it's it comes more authentically and the outer purpose and with much more gifts to other people and therefore much more fulfillment when I'm fulfilling my inner purpose, which is to be present and be okay within, to find that happiness within myself. So to me, it's heaven and earth. We're human beings. So being human, but we can't get lost in the humanness. We have to be beings that are vertical and horizontal. So it's like the
Yeah.
cross.
And that's really tough, because it's tough because it's hard to find that balance, because you and I both know that every day there's going to be a challenge where we question ourselves. We're not going to be like, oh, 24/7. That's not how it works. I mean, if we were that way, we would be like Dalai Lama, right? I mean, that's just not, we are human at the end of the day. We don't have the ability to practice this feeling of oneness 24/7 like like monks or what have you. So there comes a fine balance, and we've talked about this before, where self-care, being selfish, is good when you put the oxygen mask first on yourself before you can help others, which is a real big thing. It's an important part of this process, because when you start taking care of yourself, that's when things kind of like the puzzle pieces come together, and you start realizing that, hey, you know what? Props for me, because I just took on that challenge and I overcame it. Right. So now you start giving yourself kudos for these little small wins that build up, and then you start rating success differently. And as you see yourself making these achievements throughout, whatever the time frame or whatever, then the happiness comes in, because you're feeling more confident, you're feeling more fierce, you're feeling more on top of the game, and you start becoming a person that can establish boundaries and make more intelligent decisions, using both intellectual and the creative side. And you have more bandwidth, I think, versus when you look at success for people who have everything. Are they really successful? Do they have that work-life balance? Is their, marriage on the rocks? Do they have a relationship with their children? Because they're off balance. And then when you get to this point where you are congratulating yourself and taking care of yourself and these little small wins, it creates this big, I don't know how to say it, but a big like blanket over you, that you feel comfortable, and you start to feel good in your own skin.
Yeah.
And humanness becomes different now. Humanness becomes the oneness, and humanness is being successful, is you feeling like you're enough, you have enough, and being able to help others along the way.
Yes. Yes. You said a lot of really great stuff. So what I hear you saying is we're talking about having our insides taken care of. We learn how to be present. We learn how to take care of ourselves. But the adventure
Mhm.
is not just that we live in this vertical dimension of here I am. We could just be a monk and sit in a cave and then we wouldn't have anything to worry about. The Dalai Lama seems like an amazing person. He doesn't really have to have a job. His job's to go around and talk about peace. And no offense, Dalai Lama, he's such a likable guy. Not that we know each other, but I just big fan.
I'm like, are you guys besties or what? I mean, sounds like you
You
know
don't you
him.
feel like you know the Dalai Lama? He's just like. By the way, I think that Yoda, his voice was taken from the Dalai Lama. If you listen, their voices are the same. Side note. So, so but what I hear you saying is, okay, we find peace, and this is a lifelong being able to be someone who meditates. But the problem is we can meditate. We can do our daily journaling in the morning. We can pray, do centering prayer. We can start the meeting, start some sort of 12-step meeting in the morning, whatever we do to center ourselves. And then we get off the cushion, or we get away from our journaling or whatever. And then all of a sudden we can run around like mad men and women. And so number one is to be able to take that meditation off the mat and into your life, to be able to take that centering prayer or whatever you do to center yourself, to be someone who is more giving and loving, and to be able to put that into action. But then the beautiful, interesting, and the adventure of life is then we come across life, which is full of challenges, which is full of lessons. And what I hear you talking about is then you have these wins, as you put it. And you can't have a win without coming across challenges. And when you come across challenges, it's just like we have this game of life. We lose, we win. We lose, we win. When we lose, hopefully we learn lessons. When we win, hopefully we've grown too. We've grown both either way if we're coming at this consciously. But we are here to be human beings. So we're here to be conscious within ourselves, but learn from the outer world. And so, I mean, that really brings us to, so then what is success? What is success if we're living consciously? We all want to be happy, and we've established that being alone and being okay being alone and being okay no matter what happens, that is the vertical dimension, the spiritual dimension, the inner journey, the inner purpose. And so therefore now, if the fundamental goal is to be okay no matter what, then we're left with the horizontal, with going through life and expressing ourselves in ways that seem possibly more authentic and purposeful for us. So let's build on that and talk about more, having wins, and more about what you have found and what I have found, and what anyone who wants to chime in to find out what makes life worth living and therefore successful.
So, like you said earlier, everyone has their own definition of what success is. I think you and I have a similar idea of what success is because we've been on a similar journey of self development, of growth, and expanding our awareness. So, but before I even came into this, I took inventory of what do I have? What do I have that is mine? And what do I have that I so for instance, what do I have? Integrity. What do I have? Dignity. What do I have? A roof over my head. What do I have? All these things. I have supportive friends and family. Take inventory, because even though initially it doesn't look like much, it's huge. It really is huge, but you won't see that initially. But then you keep on building on that, on top of that list of what that success is, or what things you have acquired, or what you already have that's worth, giving a shout out for. Because at the end of the day, you are your own cheerleader. That's really what it comes down to. You are your own biggest support. You are your own cheerleader. The people around you that can support you and push you along the way, those are bonus people. That's like the supportive actors in the movie. You are your own actor, director, and cheerleader. So for me, it was just zoning in on, okay, I know all this has happened, but what do I have now that I can um like focus on, that it means successful, even if you don't believe it. Start there. And that's how I started.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I keep saying things that you say are beautiful, but that they really are. I mean, uh, so I don't mean that in a pretentious way. I find it. I resonate with it. I vibe with it. So and who cares what I vibe with or what you vibe with? We're here to just share and serve other people. But I think you've done a lot of work, and what, as I must admit I have too, and what the saying that comes to me, and I'm not a religious person, but a very famous line from the Bible, I believe, is "My cup runneth over." So if we are coming from a place of "I don't have it," and I think this is a big theme, and this is what you're saying, I don't have it, I need to get it from the outside, I need to get it from the world. Well, we're beggars. And what happens when we're a beggar? Well, it really appears that if we're saying, "What can I get? What can I get?" the world tends to say that back to us, not in some mysterious way, but in the form of other people. They want things from you. It's things, our relationships become agreements. We can have arrangements instead of relationships. We have this feeling of lack, and when we have this feeling of lack, there's never any happiness. I should say, usually not happiness. When happiness comes, it's fleeting. So we're talking about finding what you're talking about, I believe, is partially is gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's look at what I have. My cup runneth over. And if you are breathing, if you are, I have met people who have found peace in a prison cell. I've met people who have bad, really challenging disabilities who found peace because you can find that within yourself. And so being able, I think a big point that we're not saying, but what we're alluding to is we use the word ego. Our human minds are going to tell us what we're lacking because we have this survival brain that is always needing it. We it came from all these hundreds of thousands of years where we were needing to survive. I mean, it was only 100 years ago when we had to go to a river to get water. And we don't have we have all of these conveniences. We can talk on the internet. Life is easy, but we have this survival brain that's always asking us what we're lacking. And we're looking at, this is missing, we don't have this. And then if somebody asks us what success is, if we're thinking from our survival brain, we're thinking, well, whatever it is, it's what I don't have. So therefore, I need to, maybe meet the person of my dreams. And maybe that could be a nice addition. I need to have a bigger house. So that could be a nice addition. Or I could have more of a sense of community. All these things are valid. But what you're talking about is wanting what you have first. And then from that place, looking at what can be an addition. And then what I would also add is when we come from the survival brain, life is very serious. It's not fun. It's scary. And we come from a place of need, like you talked about, because we have this feeling of lack. But when we are coming from a place of "I have it already," we're coming from a place of gratitude, which is much more realistic. Then life becomes more of an adventure. It's more fun. It's more of a game. So we get to be in a game that is more enjoyable. Sometimes it can be painful, but we're able to express ourselves with more freedom, more playfulness, more excitement. And then what I would also add is more mystery, because I'm not controlling all this. I don't know what's going to happen in this video game, in this game that I'm playing, but it's more like a game and a dream than this serious survival of the fittest kind of way of going through life. So which do you think that we're taught by society? Which do you think, or do you think it's both? What's what are subcultures telling us? That this is serious, it's a game of survival, or this is a game of I have it already, so let's just enjoy it. I have an opinion, but what's your opinion about it?
Well, think about even us now in our midlife, whatever. I mean, how many times have you gone to your parents' house and then been like, you could have become a doctor, or you could have become a lawyer, or you could have done this because they have a different, out of survival, they wanted you to become something better than them to be successful. And the reality is, how many people are really taught to to not to take life seriously? You have to be with a set of family members or friends that are like already spiritual to begin with. Maybe in the Indian culture where that's more prevalent, maybe, I don't know, but they have their own caste systems. So I think right now it's more programmed that in order for you to be successful, make something of yourself. So if I were a tree hugger living in Hawaii in just a shed and I surf all day, I'm a loser, right? According to society. Where in fact, I'm like, just like you said, I have no worries. I'm chill. I just have to check the weather, make sure, see if it's, okay for me to go out. I have enough. I have my food. I have my friends, and I'm living the best life ever. And I'm probably going to live to 150 because I have zero stress, right? So, and you hit it right on point. Life isn't meant to be that serious. And it's hard. It's hard because you have to take things seriously, especially when what we joke around is like when we're adulting, it's like, man, I just wanted to be a kid where you played in the playground where all the playground structures were made out of metal and we didn't care. We got third-degree burns, where we were drinking water out of the hose that's full of lead. We were in schools with asbestos or whatever. We didn't care. It was so free. And now we've become robots. We've become, we work for the man, we work for this, and we don't, what do we get out of it? Stress, living paycheck to paycheck, job loss, GMOs up the wazoo, like all sorts of things. And we're paying for that. So the question is, we're, to answer your question, I think we're raised in survival. Most of us were raised on survival mode, and the other side of it is coming to light now.
Yes, and here's the irony. If anybody can't tell, we're both Americans. If you're somewhere else, pretty obvious. And America, perhaps the most affluent and one of the top most affluent cultures in the world. And yet, there is kind of a survival mentality that we have. So, different cultures have different priorities. If you go to Europe, you're less likely, in a lot of places in Europe that I've been, people don't ask you what you do for a living first thing. It may come up later, but if you are even in Hawaii, I had a friend who was at a bank in Hawaii when he was living there, and he was just blown away because it's so funny. Your story reminds me of that. One Hawaiian said to another Hawaiian, he's like, "Is your son still surfing?" He's like, "Yes." And he was like, "Good." You know? I mean, nobody would say that in nobody would say that in America.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's too bad. It's just and this is the point that I really want to make, is we are told what we should want. We are told what success is. And we live, and I knew I was going to I didn't know what I was going to talk about, but I knew I would talk about this because it has to come up. We live in a consumeristic society. In America, we're known for our billboards. Everywhere you look, it is buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, I feel so blessed to live in this affluent country. What keeps the machine going is you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this. You know, whether it's a pair of sunglasses or new pair of shoes or the vacation that you're going to have or that you're saving up for. And of course, we work more than most countries out there
Mhm.
too. If you work for a country that is based in another part of the world, they take more vacation days. Same company, but the other cultures don't put up with that. So my point in saying all that is we are told by well-meaning people what we should want, what we shouldn't want, what is successful and what is happiness and what's not. And then we walk around with the shame if we aren't fitting that mold. But the thing about it is, it's whether it's COVID or midlife crisis, something happens where we either burn out a lot of times or we have loss in our lives. There's something that shakes us up, or we've raised our children and then we're left with an empty nest. There are times in our life that bring the big questions up.
Mhm.
And the question that you and I have asked ourselves, or else we wouldn't be seekers of truth, or whatever the hell you want to call us, it doesn't matter, is that we have asked, like most of us in life, what's important? What really matters in life? And it's subjective, it's not objective. It matters based on the person. But the question is, screw society. Society's going to tell you what society is interested in. And what society's interested in is itself. It doesn't make it evil, but what America's interested in is what's going to keep the machine going. Do you have a house? Do you have more children that you can feed, that you can, whatever it is? And so the big question is forget about what Nada wants and what Kent wants, but like, what is it inside of yourself? What is it that you want? And so that comes down to values. And you were talking about values, like integrity. What do I have? What is it in my life that I already have that makes me happy? So what are those values? What is it that I would like to express in myself that I haven't expressed yet? And what is it at the end of my life that I would want to have shared with other people, or what I would want to have given to other people? Is probably not going to be, gosh, I wish I would have spent more time at the office. But, so what what do you think about values and our own personal values, and tell me your thoughts on what makes us individuals and the expression of that and what truly matters, and breaking out of our culture's ideas of what we should do.
That's, I think, first and foremost, something that I had to learn is how to be indifferent, because everyone has something to say about it. Everybody has something to criticize and judge you on, right? And so what I've told myself is, are you paying my rent? Are you paying my debt? And if you're not, I don't care what you say. I'm going to live my life. So learning how to be indifferent is something that's very hard, especially when you're somebody that really cares. You care about what people think, you care about yourself and the image you may be portraying. And that from that point, your values are going to be different, because what do you value more? Image, or do you value your freedom, your independence? And I think that's a very hard thing for people to kind of like put in the file cabinet, when you become indifferent, where you may get triggered, but you can quickly roll your eyes like, anyway, move forward. And when you start to do that, when you start to take control of your emotions, and I'm going to go back to something you were talking about, because you did mention control, and I think I mentioned this in the very beginning of our podcast, is that to be in control is to let go of control. And it is so hard to let go of control because that is your safety net. But until you start harnessing your emotions, then you start to develop the values and belief systems, because it's a mindset game as well. As you start telling your mind more like I am, these affirmations or whatever, you start really solidifying a new foundation and you start rewiring your brain. So as you're doing that, your values by default are going to change. And as your values change, your belief systems. If you were raised like I was raised Catholic, so I understood Catholicism. I hated it, but I understood it, and when I got married without having a Catholic wedding, you know, it was a big thing, but that was against my belief system, my value system. Are you comfortable to go against that? Are you comfortable to be the black sheep? And I know I'm saying quite a bit, but it just all comes down to being able to contain your emotions. And if you have those emotions, deal with them like process them and deal with them quickly, so you become stronger and develop this foundation that you need to develop or to define what your values and beliefs are, to get to the success that you're looking for.
So how are emotions, working through emotions and getting in touch with your values and what matters to you, how are those connected for you?
Well, because it took when I felt bad for somebody saying something about me, like well, I told you
Oh, I
last
see.
time we did, where I started to get trolled on the podcast that I'm doing. And before I would have been like, oh my God, like, why did I offend you or whatever? Versus this time I'm like, thank you for watching. You just, you help with my algorithm, and thumbs up type of situation. So you become more, I guess, you have a thicker shell and life becomes more playful because you transmute that, you change that energy.
I see what you're saying now. Yeah. So we, by nature, have been given these brains that care about image
Mhm.
because we can't get kicked out of the tribe or we don't survive. And I like to bring it back to that a lot because it's just, we have to really see what our brains are doing. Our brains are these survival machines that we've inherited. And a lot of what we're trying to do when we're becoming more conscious, mindful, spiritual, whatever we want to call it, is to break out of these habitual patterns that we've had, that we were born with. So number one is to not beat ourselves up and to realize, okay, so I have this mind that cares a lot about image. Why? Because I was going to get kicked out of the tribe if I didn't care what people thought about me, and I would die. So that's why I care about image. What happens is you give less of an F the older you get, usually,
Mhm.
right? And why? Maybe partially because you have less time ahead, and you just realize how futile giving an F what people think about is, because everybody's just walking around caring what you think about them anyway. So to be authentic and to be real is so important. So really a hugely spiritual, conscious, mindful way to go through life is to care less what people think and to break out of society's way of caring about you. The way society cares about us is to say, what have you done? What are you accomplishing? And yes, it's important to accomplish things, but to at what cost? Are you sacrificing your own values? Are you sacrificing your own beliefs about how you should go through life, your own integrity, which is what you started off talking about. So looking inside of ourselves, and when people are telling us what we should want, to know that it's just coming from this cultural mind think that isn't really based on anything true. It's just based on what feeds a society that feeds itself. So when you're talking about controlling your emotions, I think part of what you're talking about is caring less what people think and being truer to yourself. Therefore, I mean, gosh, how much reactivity is going to fall by the wayside when we care less about what other people think and care more about what we want to express. And another way to go through this consciously is less about what is it that people are going to think of me and more about what can I give. When we start thinking about what can I give, there are less, and now I'm going to curse, fucks to give. There are less fucks to give when it's about what we're giving. If you look at the people who've made the biggest impact in this world, they didn't give that much of an F what people thought. When I'm talking about impact, I'm talking about real impact. Did Martin Luther King, and I use him as an example so much just because he's one of my idols, how much of an F did he give about what and would Obama have been president? Would we have gone in the last 70 years just 360 with racism almost in our country? Now I'm getting a little political, but it's because a person who didn't give an F and actually included in that, not caring what people think, is how can I serve? You can't truly serve other people and really care what people think at the same time, in my opinion. So it reminds me of that book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. It's a great title. I read the book. What I mostly remember is the title. So that's one thing that we're saying is caring less about what people think. That seems to be a pattern.
And
What else?
and I want to point out too that it's back to the success thing. It's whatever you feel is success. So for instance, if I were to die tonight, right, and I only have like an hour left to live, I can say I did my best, and I gave my kids adventures, as many adventures as I could, taking them, traveling places with them that they normally wouldn't have been able to go, or anybody would have been able to go. And that, to me, that would be a huge success, because I love to travel and I wanted to bring the joy of traveling to the kids. To me, that's successful. So
Yes.
if I die, I'm okay, because I've already built a legacy ish. And I don't have a big home at all. As a matter of fact, I have a small home. I don't have a nice car. As a matter of fact, I have a 2012 Nissan Xterra, which kicks ass. I love it. But what I'm able to bring to the table for my children is success for me, is my legacy.
Yes. And bringing it to the present moment. I think if we can live, there's a country song about this, like we're dying as much as possible, like we don't have much time, we can be more effective. I don't know how effective my videos I do, but all I know is before I do my videos, all I do is this one thing. I'm going to be dead soon. And then I go and I say whatever needs to be said. So to me, that's very powerful. And who knows? I may have with modern science another 50 years, but um, I don't know how well my brain will be doing in 50 years, but that's beside the point. But life is short, and we don't have time to care as much. But one thing that really seems to be of paramount to people is some sort of purpose. And it doesn't have to be, your purpose could be that you make other people happy in your retirement home,
Mm-hmm.
that you bring joy to other people when you're playing shuffleboard and when people are having their meetings at your retirement home. You it could be that you have these two friends that are in your life that truly need to be heard and listened to. Or you may have a singing voice, and when you sing, you truly make a handful of people happy, or a greater group of people happy. Whatever your song is, it's there in you now. And a big question to ask people, in my opinion, is what is a gift that I give you? Ask friends that will care to answer you, that are really going to enjoy answering you, that love you. What is a gift that I give you as a friend? And what is a gift that you see that I give? And you'll know. Like, one gift that I give people is, I, for whatever reason, I'm disarming. I just make people feel comfortable a lot of times. That's a certain kind of not giving an F. I'm just like, I make people feel at ease. I don't know that I do that. I was born with it. There's no ego in that. I came with that. So, like, what's a gift we've come with? And then what are skills that we've acquired? These are things that bring joy when we express them, and in this adventure of life. So we're talking, just to bring it back to two things: finding peace within ourselves, finding the joy no matter what, finding gratitude for what we already have, and then finding out who we truly are and expressing that in a way that isn't doing it for an audience to get approval, but rather is doing it because we love to do it. And yes, we have to make a living, but within the structure that we have, how can we be more truly ourselves? And how can we have some fun and some connection and all the things that really matter to people? And I will refer people to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can Google that. And it talks about human needs that are so important to human beings. But yeah, so what would you like to add to what we're talking about? We have a little bit more time.
So you added basically, it's like what fulfills you. So if you're going to a job that you hate, and I know it's scary, but you got to really look at that and evaluate that. If you are continuously go to a job that you hate, more than likely you're going to be stressed out, you're going to be cranky, and then you're going to bring that home. And every time you wake up in the morning, you're gonna hate it because you're gonna hate going to work. So that's a good place to start to find, what it is that you can fulfill yourself with. What within yourself is fulfilling that you can share with others. So maybe you continue to go to that job that you hate because it's paying a great salary, it has great benefits, and it's taking care of you and your family. But can you supplement that with something that fulfills you?
Yes, yes. So this really brings me to think about Dharma. That's what they talk about in Buddhism. That's my dog, and I did not put the windows down, so he's communicating.
My
So
dog thinks the dog is here, so now she's barking.
yeah, we're all used to that with COVID. I mean, you can have a very serious business meeting, and there's a dog barking, and then it's like, well, it's part of life. So So Dharma is one thing, and now I've got a really cool story I want to tell you. Actually, a therapist I had at one time told me this. She said she went to the dentist and that she felt, everybody knows that a dentist is supposed to bring you a lot of stress because you don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know if it's true, but you hear that the number one suicide rate for professions is dentists, because nobody wants to come to them or whatever.
Right.
Shout out to my dentist. He watches these sometimes. He's a very cool dude. Um, Anatoly. So anyway, she went to the dentist, and the dentist was really kind, and they laughed, and they had this really good, and she felt so relaxed, and she actually didn't want to leave when she was at the dentist. And she was like, at the end, she said, what the hell happened? I don't know what happened here. And he said, I went through dental school, and after I paid all of this money and got into all of this debt, I realized I didn't want to be a dentist. And so what I decided to do was to find a way to love what I do. And the way he found to love what he did was to make people who came like a guest that were incredibly welcomed, like they were his own parents, and to try to make them happy. And that made him happy. So he found purpose even within something that he didn't love. So yes, it's great. If you haven't found your dharma yet, if you haven't found your thing, even with what I'm doing, I changed my niche, and and we're all figuring things out as we go. But how can you be happy now with what you have, and then know that when I think another thing that you said at the beginning is when things aren't working out, everything that's not working out is bringing us more to greater authenticity a lot of times by learning lessons, by getting more integrity and fullness, and we learn how to just grow, and growth is such a huge part of success. But then how, while we're enjoying what we have now, how can we just play this game of expressing ourselves more fully in this life with more purpose? And what it all seems to come down to is serving others in ways that are really more purposeful. And I've talked about this in other uh, talks that we've done, which is ikigai, which is in Japan, in Okinawa. Everybody has an ikigai, which is a purpose, and it may be something very simple. You may be picking up trash, but you know what you're meant to do. So I didn't know we were going to talk about purpose, but we're talking about purpose. What kinds of? I know we only have a few minutes. What kinds of buttons would you want to put on this, Nada, as far as what we've talked about?
In order for you to feel fulfilled and successful, get rid of the haters, no matter how painful it is. I don't care if it's family members. If you're married to one, find a way to like not get bothered by them, but you have to cut that off, because the term is out there, energy vampire, and it's a real thing because it drains you. All that means is that you're just emotionally drained because you always have to put up some sort of a front, some sort of confrontation. You always have to defend yourself or whatever. Get rid of it. Any which way possible, get rid of it. Once that attachment is gone, and yes, it's going to hurt or whatever, but that's when the success and everything else that we just talked about will come in. Go for it.
That is no, that just gets me all excited. You opened up at the end something that we can talk about more, but to piggyback on what you said is asking yourself the question about people in your life. Is this person giving me energy, or are they draining
Yep.
me? And sometimes you have to have the people in your life if they're your boss or whatever. There are no rules. You can leave your job, but do we have someone in our life? You call them haters, and that's a cool way to put it. And are they? And then you talked about energy vampires. Are they giving me love? Are they giving me life? Or are they taking from me? And you, as this person on this short journey of life, can't afford to have people who are throwing obstacles in your way when you're trying in this difficult life that we all live to be more fully yourself and to find as much happiness as you can, and therefore make people around you happy, which certainly has a lot to do with success. So yeah, that's a great way to end things, that not having haters. We can talk about that later, I think, in more depth.
I think we need to put things in perspective that we're all a form of currency. We are all gold. So if we are all gold, we should be treated as such. You won't throw, especially nowadays, you won't throw gold away, right? So you got to treat yourself as such. And we usually lack self-treatment, or, self-care. And we devalue our worth is where I'm getting at. So look at yourself. You are worthy. Everyone, if you're here, you are worthy and you have a purpose. You may not know right now, but you will find out once you start peeling the onion and you start detaching yourself and you start going inwardly, you will find the worth and you will find the purpose, and the success, the fulfillment will all come into play. And you can change your mind as many times as you want on what that purpose is. You and I both know we keep changing our minds. We keep changing everything that we do because we evolve. We don't stay. We are not static. We're dynamic. So we will continue to evolve and go for whatever feels comfortable at that point.
Yes, that's awesome. I didn't say beautiful that time. Can I be self-indulgent and end with a short poem that I might butcher, but I'm just going to go by memory based on something you said.
Okay.
And then can we just be out of here after we finish with the
Yes.
poem, or is there
No,
anything else you want to say?
that's it. We can peace out.
All right. I think this is by Robert Frost, and it was actually in a movie called The Outsiders, if anyone is old enough to remember that movie. But here it is. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. So let leaves subside to leaf, so only sank to grief. So dawn goes down today, nothing gold can stay.
Now I'm going to check that out on Google.
I probably butchered it a little bit, but that it's in my memory, and I probably don't remember it all. But you get the point.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. We will see you back in 2 weeks. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Kent, he is at
KentScheibel.com, KentScheibel.com. And what about
just
you, Nada?
hit my YouTube at Guided Counsel.
At
That's all I
Guided
want.
Counsel. Right on.
Okay. Bye.